Hello everyone, welcome to another Java video. In this video, we're going to be removing duplicates from an array list. We're going to create a program that analyzes an array list of numbers and remove any duplicates within the list except for the very first occurrence of that value. And here's our solution breakdown. We're going to create an array list of numbers and integers, and then we're going to create an empty array list for the integers. And what we're going to do is just add the values from our first array list as long as it doesn't exist in our second array list. And this is our goal for our program. So to start off, I just want to highlight that we are now using this object called ArrayList. Okay, ArrayList is a container of multiple items within a single variable, so it's going to help us to store multiple data. But in Java, we can only handle single type of data types. So we're going to create a array list based on integers, and we're going to call it database, and we're going to say that we have created a new array list composed of only integers in the future. And right now, this array list has no values. We just initialize it. Okay, just like how we can initialize an empty string like this, we have initialized an empty array list that we're going to give values of. In this infinite while loop here, what I've done is, based on what the user inputs, we're going to either exit that loop or we're going to be adding some integers. Okay, so what we're going to do is say that, well, if their input was an exit, we're going to convert whatever they inputted as a number. Hopefully it was an integer they have inputted, and we're going to be adding it to our database. So database is our variable for our array list, and to add a value to an array list, we use a method called add on your array list variable. Okay, so this is going to go over and over and over again, and I've actually got it to print what that database would look like before I actually handle and remove duplicates. For us to remove duplicates, what we're going to do is first create an empty array list again, and we're going to store the values from our database variable into this variable called noDupes, where we're going to have just a single occurrence of each values from our database array. And we're going to be using a loop within a loop to do so. Our first outer loop is going to go through and use a for each loop. I'm going to represent that each number in our database is going to be represented from this variable called num. Okay, and we're going to be looping all this for every single value in our database. To start off, if our no duplicates array is empty, if the size is equal to 0, I'm just going to add the very first value, because since our array list with no duplicates is empty, there's really nothing to check. So we can easily just say that, hey, like, we don't need to do any conditionals or loops. We're just going to add that value, and now we're going to compare it to the second value. So we're going to go into our else portion here, where we don't have a array list with just no values. We have at least minimum 1. I'm going to set this Boolean variable that represents that a value exists to false. We haven't initialized that this is a duplicate yet, so we're going to say that, well, we don't know. I'm going to assume that it's not a duplicate, and it's our job to prove that the value that we're looking at from our num, from our database, is a duplicate by looping through our noDupes array list here. Okay, so our job is to look for this value inside our noDuplicates array so that we can either prove that it is a duplicate or not. Okay, and if this num is equivalent to num2, all the num2s that are being represented by the noDuplicates array list, if those two values are equal, then, well, we found a duplicate, so we can actually just break out of this inner for loop right here. All right, and after this for loop is over, if at any point the variable exists is still false, so the not if false will be true, as in if the exists variable never turns true, then we can add the current number that we're analyzing from the database into the noDuplicate database right here. Okay, so after all this for loop within for loop is over, we should be able to output and have a variable that contains the first occurrence of every value in the database variable into a noDuplicates variable without having actually duplicates inside our noDuplicates array. So let's see how this runs. So we're just going to say that we're going to have these values of 3, 1, 4, 1, 5, 9. So I've added these 6 values so far, and this is this while loop acting and doing its job. What it's doing while true, while continuously true, we're going to say that we're going to enter a value or type exit to stop your inputs. Okay, so then we got to input 314159. Since none of those inputs were actually equivalent to a string word of exit, we didn't break, but we were executing this line of code here. We were converting that input to a num and then adding that into our database. Okay, so yeah, I'm just gonna put those 6 values in again so that we have some nice duplicates, and then we're going to type in exit. So our current database had 314159 and 314159. It had 4 ones and 2 of each other values in our database, and it was able to shrink down to an array of 314159. So let's see how that works. When our no dupes array list started, it had 0 value. It had no size. Therefore, it probably just added the first 3 and then went on to represent 1. Okay, right now 1 doesn't exist in our no duplicates array. Therefore, it can easily say that, well, it doesn't exist. Exist is still false, so I can still add that 1. 4 doesn't exist, so I can still add that 4. 1 does exist, right? So it's going to set to this exist to true, and it's not going to execute this code of adding that value into a node duplicates, okay? And it's going to continue to do that for all the repetitive numbers that we had and just have only single instances of each value from our database into our node duplicates array list. So there you have it, folks. This is your remove duplicate solution by using an array list. In this one, we learned how to infinitely add values into an array list by using a infinite while loop true and just continuously adding it over until the user typed exit. Here, we learn how to use a for loop within a for loop to search through 2 different variables and really compare values of those 2 array list and see what we can do with them. In this case, we were removing duplicates or detecting which numbers are duplicates so that we don't add it into one of the array lists. Okay. And as always, thank you for watching and stay classy.